So, so one of the issues when we were dealing with this is this idea of maintaining the offset. So if I have my locator, I removed my constraints on this. I'm starting kind of from scratch, so there's no inputs being fed into that. If I maintain the offset of my object, so if this is the constraining object and this is the null object or the group that I'm going to, and if I say parent and I say maintain offset, I'm going to say apply, and then so currently this object, so I have this, I'm going to move it over here. I go to my null object, and if I turn off my weight, the box is going to snap back. And if I move this, let's say if I move this someplace and I turn on the weight again, it's going to maintain that offset distance from the object. So I can never really get it close. Now, one of the things that I could do, or I could at least try, is that if I move the box inside of the group, then it would pass, and that might be a solution that you want to have. So for instance, if this object constrained my null or my box group, and I said constrain parent, and I'm maintaining offset, when this box, so if I was to carry it, let's say that currently the yellow locator is in possession, and I move that yellow locator over here, let's say to a spot, and then I turn off the weight of it, I turn that off. Notice that my box is going to jump, but I turn this one on. The pink one has possession, but it's moved. Of course, I want it to be instantaneous. So let's try this. Let's just see what happens if we've got this going. So currently I have my yellow locator, and I'm going to animate that in. Say I'm going to animate the translation real quick. I'm going to key select that, and the box's null constraint, I want to keyframe both of these. So I want my yellow locator, my pink locator. I'm going to key select them, and then I'm going to move in time, and I'm going to move this over here. And I'm not going to get right next to it. I'm just going to park it right there. And at this point, my keyframe, I have automatic keying on, so I have that. I go to my null object here, and then I change the weights of these. So yellow becomes 0 and pink becomes 1. Okay, so what I end up getting is this weird looking situation, because what's happening is there's a slow transition between my pink locator and my other. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to go to frame 30, and then I'm going to keyframe this position and say key selected, and then at frame 60 I'm going to translate that to a new location. Let's say I move it down. So this is what it looks like as is. I've got the box moving over, well, supposed to be, and then moving down when it's in possession of the pink one's in possession. Well, so here's what we have to do. The box, remember, the box has constraints on it, and I need to change those constraints instantaneously, because currently my constraints look like this. It's drifting slowly from one position to another, and when you do that, one object is losing control of it and the other one is gaining control, so there's this shift. What I want to do is actually use what's called a stepped tangent here. That's going to give me the ability to just have the actual objects snap possession at this point. One turns off and one turns on, all in the same key. But what has happened is that when I do that, because of the object's maintain offset, I have a jump back to a different position. And so that can be a real pain. So that's not what we want, because I don't want to have to take that object and then kind of figure out where it was and then try to move it back to that position. I don't want to have to compensate. I don't want to have to compensate for that in any way. So that's not what we want to do. So let me clear my scene. Okay, so here's something that we've got to take into consideration. And when we are using these constraints and all of that sort of thing, especially if we're trying to do something accurate, we have to make sure that we have our objects in the exact position when we want them to be taken over by the constraining objects. Because sometimes we don't want to have any snapping. I don't want the snapping to pull something or snap it out of position. So I have my object here. My cube. I'm going to reposition my cube. So I have it back in the beginning here. So I have it basically in the middle of these locators. And so sometimes what you have to do is basically I want the pivot point of this to snap to the exact location of these objects. And so I want to set my scene up so that I can do that fairly easily and not have to worry about offset values and all those kind of things. And so sometimes using the constraint where I say the locator is constraining the null object or my group node, and I won't use the maintain offset. I want it to snap exactly to the locator's pivot point. So here's one way we can do it so that I know that my group node is going to snap exactly to the pink locator and it's going to snap exactly to its location. I can know that when my weight value is turned off, my yellow is turned off, it should snap right there. If I turn this off, it'll go back to its original position. I can say this and that, and I can constrain that again. So this object then is going to be pulled from yellow to pink, and each time it's going to jump to the weight of the object below. So this one should be 0, or this one should be 1. So, oops, I got them both selected. So, okay, so I need to. Okay, so currently, let me see. It looks like that this object here, my locator, I need to. Looks like I accidentally parented something. Let me just check my stuff out here. Let me go back to where they are in the middle. Okay, so as I turn on my locator weights, it's going to snap. It's going to pop back to where its original location was once the weight is not active, it's not on. And so that's what I want. Okay. So currently my object here is sitting in this location. I do not have my locator. My locator here is not active. And when I turn on the object, it's going to snap to it. so it snaps to it. So my yellow locator is now controlling this object. If I animate my yellow locator, I can carry this object around wherever it is. So if I animate that, say I move it back and forth, translate values, if I key those, I can move it, key selected, I can move it in time and then move it in space. And then I want this object to take its possession. Well, one thing I could do, I could kind of do a little trick, and I could meld the actual locator weights together so that it looks like it just moves into this position. That's a solution. That might be something in this particular case, but if I needed it to move specifically, I need my locator and this locator to be in perfect alignment. So if I had to snap my my locator to that position, I'd need to make sure that it moved exactly into the position of my pink object. So when I change the weight, so for instance, here's the weight of my yellow. It's keyframe. I'm going to key that, key selected, and then at 30 the weight value of that is going to change to 0. It'll snap back there if I don't have the weight of this one change. So I actually need to keyframe this one, and this one is going to become 1, and I need to key that, and I did, and then back at 0 here I need to change that, or sorry, back at frame 0 I need to change that as well. So really I'm going to be getting a kind of a blend between the two until I snap that or use my graph editor to make that a stepped transition. Then it should look like they just instantly change. So now if I take my pink locator and I keyframe that, so at frame 30 I want it to be in this location, and then at frame 60, let's say I move it to a new spot. Let's say I want to move it down here to the blue. Let's snap it into blue's position. Then I have yellow going to pink. Pink, notice that the yellow one stays there. Pink moving down to blue. Alright, so what I have to do then is keyframe. I have a keyframe of my pink locator. So here's my pink locator. Its translate values are here. At frame 60, I want it to be there, right? And then at frame 60, for the box weight, I want to change. I need to keyframe these two now, because at frame 60, the weight here is going to change. It's going to change from 0. It's going to change back to 0, and this is going to change to 1. Okay. This locator then, back at frame 30, needs to be 0. And I need to keyframe that. And then there should be some sort of kind of weight exchange here. That's what I expect, but I need to make that a stepped process for my other curve. So this curve needs to be stepped as well. So what I expect to happen then, alright, so then I can take this at frame 60, keyframe its translation value, key selected, and then when I move it on, I can move it then to another location somewhere else. Notice that the pink one is here, and now the blue one is there. So if I do my animation correctly, yellow transfers to pink, transfers to blue, and then that plots. And there's no change and no snapping, and it looks seamless and fine. And so that's the basic idea. And so that takes a little bit of practice in order to get that to work out